Hey Maggie,
Hey, what?
what are caterpillars scared of?
I don't know. What?
Dogger pillars. Hello everyone and welcome to Engage, a family gaming podcast. This is episode 191, and I'm your host Stephen Dutzman. As always, this is the official video game and board game podcast for EngageFamilyGaming.com. EFG is a website where parents like myself and my co-hosts come together to give everyone the information they need to get their family game on. This week, I am joined by my permanent co-host, the Princess of Power, Amanda Farrow of SuperParent.com and Gamedaily.biz. How are you?
I'm so much better now that we're podcasting. Kind
I
of
know.
a lousy day.
This definitely makes
happy to be doing this.
it definitely makes every day better. As I promised, I did not give you a recording of me opening the podcast for you to have to be your alarm. But we can do that. It could be your text alert. That'll make your family super happy.
It's currently the sound that's made whenever you try and enter it's like the doorbell or whatever whenever you try to enter a room in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, because you're that level of dork. I get it, and that's fine. So am I.
That's whatever. You know who I was.
Yeah, I know. I know who you are. Yeah, exactly. You weren't recruited on this podcast for anything less than that.
My lack of dorkitude.
Yeah, exactly. For the longest time, my text message was the transformer sound, like the transform sound. What I really want, because I still have the audio file, and I don't know, I think it might have even been Mike who put it on the internet, which was the audio clip of That Wizard Came from the Moon.
It's true, he did. That's his current text
I found
message.
it on Twitter. Yeah, I think we've even talked about this before. I think we talked about this at Toy Fair, that I have that sound file somewhere, and I'm desperately trying to figure out a way to put it up as a sound file on my iPhone, and it's just hard, and I'm not going to switch to Android just to do it, because that's just no.
That's fair.
But one day. So, anyway, enough about Ringtones, the podcast, although I'm sure there is a podcast about ringtones somewhere. It's just the two of us this week. Now, I know last week I promised we were going to talk about board games to get ready for Gen Con. However, I had an epiphany in the meantime. And here's what the epiphany was. You went to the Fortnite World Cup over the weekend, and you Instagrammed the crap out of it. You were like, hashtag influencer.
I was insane,
You really were. It was really hard to keep up with. Thank you for allowing me.
I was so excited.
Thank you for allowing me to regram some of those pictures. They attracted a bot who is not a bot. It was very funny. So you were at the Fortnite World Cup, and a 16-year-old kid won $3 million. So I wanted to talk about that. Also, the EVO schedule is up because EVO is this weekend, and every year during the summer, I talk about EVO, the World Fighting Game Championship. So what I thought we would do is switch it around, because I think it made more sense to talk about Gen Con after Gen Con, considering the fact that you are going to Gen Con.
Yeah, but not as a member of the press.
Nope, you're going as a fan, which means you're only going to work for half of it, because I know you. Tell me how many Gen Con appointments do you have? 0? Wow.
I have no Gen Con appointments. I am going to go fly by the seat of my pants like a good girl and go run around and see all my friends. But the only appointments that I have are all personal. I'm going to meet up with Super Parents managing editor Brandy Berthelsen. She's coming down from Muncie.
Muncie
Indiana.
what? Oh, Indiana. Oh, so she's close.
She's super close.
Will this be the first time the two of you have met?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
We've been working together now for a year and a half almost, and we've never met before. But she is instrumental in all of the good things that Super Parent is. Super Parent wouldn't be what it is if not for Brandy. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing her in person and meeting her and giving her all the hugs and giving her all the thank yous in person.
So, well, that's pretty cool. So you're gonna be at Gen Con. So what we thought we would do is switch it up and basically just have the podcast be driven by the things you're doing. Because I'm basically staying at home. You're living the wildlife, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So I figured we'd take advantage. So this week, to give everybody a preview, we're going to talk about the Fortnite World Cup. We're going to be talking about EVO. We're going to do a little update on Joy-Con Drift because we have confirmation of the process after you and I theorized about it last week. And then we have a question of the week submitted by one of our fans, and we'll talk about that later. So, first, Amanda, you went to the Fortnite World Cup. I'm very, very, very jealous because it was close enough that I could have gone. Tell me what this experience was like, because this was the first Fortnite World Cup, and it seems like they did an okay job.
They did a really, really great job. I was there for Media Day on that Thursday, which was really great. I got to, hang out and listen to some conversations with some of the players, and they were wonderful. They were genuinely just these wonderful young men. It would have been nice to have seen some girls up on the stage. We didn't talk to any girls or women. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I spent that time with the young men at the press conference, and they were just super humble and adorable. I wrote about my experiences over on Super Parent, but the one thing that I want to impart on absolutely everybody is that the Fortnite World Cup was the most wholesome thing I've ever attended. It's the most wholesome event I've ever been at.
Okay.
The audience was incredible. So all of these enthusiasts and super fans and parents that had maybe never seen a Fortnite match before, like, everybody was so excited to be there. There was nothing but cheering. Even if somebody lost and there was like that sucks for them, it was never jeers or boos. It was just always very supportive of everybody, and it didn't matter who won, and it didn't matter, if it wasn't your favorite or not. They just felt so good about just cheering whoever. And the matches themselves, I've never watched competitive Fortnite before, and it was the most bonkers thing I've ever seen in my life. I've seen some competitive gaming in my life. Don't get me wrong. I've seen, like, lots of fighting game competitions. I've watched competitive StarCraft. I've watched competitive Overwatch. Yep. But I've never seen competitive Fortnite. And competitive Fortnite is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. These kids are moving so fast because the average age of the players in the Fortnite World Cup was 16. You need to be at least 13 in order to qualify for the Fortnite World Cup. And the oldest players were 24. It wasn't that
ancient.
Yeah, they were ancient. It was like you're in your 40s at that point with Fortnite. So that was the joke, is that, Psalm came in, what was it, like second or third or something like that, and they're like, yeah, he's 42 in Fortnite years, even though he's 24.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it was, yeah, exactly. So, like, I mean, the Twitch mechanics in competitive Fortnite, and learning how those, and like I said, I've never played super competitive Fortnite before. I never got the hang of building, but watching how they set up these box traps and watching how they maneuvered through the upper echelons of competitive play, like, it was exceptional. Yeah. It was truly, truly exceptional. So I was part of the hype crew. I was there technically as press, but I was there for Super Parent. So I was there to just hype the event and be really excited, and it was just exceptional. I had so much fun.
So would you say that Fortnite, I mean, there are a lot of games that when they are played at like a casual fun level, they are like one game. But then when they are played at a high level, it is a completely different video game.
It is. It's a completely different game.
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting about, and this, realistically, I encourage a lot of folks, I mean, there are videos of the Fortnite World Cup all over YouTube. ESPN covered it. Like, this is the deal, right? This was a $30 million tournament. The winner of the solos won $3 million. $3
million US.
I mean, and he's a 16-year-old kid.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, just some kid. Just a kid. I mean,
just some 16-year-old kid. And his performances, like that kid, he rolled into first through the first match, and it was unbelievable. And he held on to that lead the entire tournament. No one was going to take it away from him. So, Yeah, I was so excited to just be sitting there in the audience and getting hyped up about like, holy crap, did you see that elimination and did you see that tactic? And now I'm starting to understand why people really enjoy watching competitive Fortnite. I'm so bad at Fortnite.
Oh,
To
I'm
be
terrible
clear,
also.
Battle Royale is not my style of game unless it's Tetris. But watching competitive Fortnite makes me want to play it. Like it genuinely does. The I'm starting to see like you and I have talked about influencer marketing before, especially with Apex Legends, and it's really interesting to watch that be enacted like in my general direction, where I'm like, I was just not good at this game before, but now that I see how like high level players are playing it, I'm really interested to figure out like how that works and how would I do it and what would my tactics be in the upper echelons, and I wonder what that would look like in a duo or in a trio or in like a full squad. So it was the most empowering thing to be in this audience. Like all these kids were so excited to be there. Marshmello was there.
Of course.
And I don't know Marshmello's music very well, but I know that he is quite the Fortnite phenomenon. And it was just like the most wholesome experience. There are no other words for it. It was just incredibly wholesome. There were so many kids and so many parents. And I heard these kids, all over the place in the arena. They're like, can you believe that we're here? Can you believe that we're actually here at the Fortnite World Cup? And they're getting super excited about seeing their favorite players, like either on the stage or they're seeing them, after the show or before the show or whatever. And the production value on the Fortnite World Cup, it took them 10 months to pull together. It was 10 months. And the way that I'm probably going to write a business thing about it for Game Daily at some point. But man, the logistics that went into this is just unbelievable. And I hope that they just keep getting better at it and they do more for the press, not because I need special anything, but I would have liked somewhere to plug my laptop in.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think so, this was likely a proof of concept for them, right? I mean, the reality is
time that they'd put that stage out, but it was the first Fortnite Cup.
Yeah, I mean, this is their Super Bowl, and the reality is there's media week before Super Bowl, right? Like there's stuff going, and so you had a media day, but I think that Fortnite and Epic Games and like their PR team, who I'm sure had their hand in everything.
They're overworked.
Yeah, well, of course. They work in games. So the and I say that as a very dark joke, but we get it. So they have to be, now that this was successful, because clearly it was a success. They got all sorts of press. I mean, ESPN covered it. Dude, and I know ESPN has an esports coverage section, but like the main ESPN Twitter account doesn't post Overwatch League results, right? Like the mothership ESPN account shared the results of a Fortnite tournament. And I know it is the big one, but they shared the results of a Fortnite tournament. That has to be one of the first times that they shared a video game outside of outside of like an off reference that was meant to be a joke or a meme, right? Like they were sharing the news. And that to me, like the fact that I saw ESPN's primary Twitter account put that out it felt like we live in a world before the Fortnite World Cup and we live in a world afterwards. And I know I've said that before, but I think that this is, in all I think it matters because Fortnite is so huge.
It is.
They could have screwed this up real bad.
They could have fallen flat on their faces. The production value could have been garbage. They could have chosen a terrible stadium. The stadium that they chose was fantastic.
Oh, I mean, the Arthur Ashe Stadium is... Arthur Ashe Stadium is beautiful.
It's gorgeous in there. I've never been there before because I don't think I've ever been to Queens before. But I was I was just pleased as punch to be there. Genuinely, the whole time that I was there, I was just so grateful to be there at all.
Yeah.
From a super parent perspective, especially because I was able to get in on the ground floor and be able to say, no. I saw the Fortnite World Cup. I see what the hype is about. I get it now. I didn't get it before. I genuinely didn't.
Yeah,
now I understand.
And I'm so excited to see that. And there's been some commentary coming from like non-gaming folks, specifically talking about the 16-year-old kid How much, if he's that
earned
good
it.
at Fortnite, what would, the big one that I saw is, so he basically won the lottery, and I'm like, no.
No, he's an athlete.
No, he worked.
He's a digital
and
athlete, but an
trained.
athlete nonetheless.
Yeah, he worked, he
Yes.
trained, he studied.
Yeah.
This is a skill-based video game.
Absolutely, it is.
And so, yeah, the folks talking about, he won the lottery and stuff like that really bugged me, because that's definitely not the way that it works.
No, it's not how esports works. And you know what's really interesting is before I started covering esports as a journalist, I had no idea. I genuinely didn't. I was totally over there with like the naysayers, and I'm like, it doesn't, like whatever. They're not real. They're not real athletes. And I honestly, ever since I started covering it, especially on Game Daily, like I get it.
Yeah.
I get what goes into it now. I understand because I'm able to take a look at it from the top down. I don't look at it from the bottom up because I don't have access to players, but because I do have access to these organizations and we're able to have more top level conversations, I'm able to take that 30,000 foot view, then that 10,000 foot view, and take a look at what esports looks like as an economy. And that to me is compelling and fascinating. And being able to see that economy enacted in person was just fascinating. And that young man was an unbelievable player, and he earned that. He earned that through and through and through and through and through.
And apparently, based on so there were some interviews with his mom, and apparently he did it in spite of his mom, like breaking his headset and not being happy with him being on his Xbox too long. And listen, man, I get it. I'm kind of lucky that Jake was at Boy Scout camp when that won, because I am certain that he'd
be like, I'm going to be a pro.
He looked at me and been like, Dad, I'm dropping out of school. I want to be a Fortnite pro. And I'm just like, ooh, you're definitely. You can try, bro, but you're not dropping out of school. But I think that's another piece is that Marsha Morgan from the Mommy Gamers shared an article on her Facebook page, and the immediate assumption was, like that he had no balance in his life, and that he was just, everything. Everybody went to the negative when Marsha.
Know that.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, how would you know? And everybody just kind of automatically assumed the negative, when the reality is, like, okay, you're right. This kid is definitely going to inspire a lot of 10 and 11 and 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds and 40-year-olds even to play Fortnite and, try to get good. And there's going to be a lot of young kids that are going to see that and try and play. And somehow that's bad because it's going to, like, poison these kids' minds.
Why?
Well, I don't. That's a very good question, and one that I disagree. One that I just disagree with their entire premise. I reject all of it. Nobody gets mad at Tom Brady for making kids want to play football, and as they shouldn't, really.
Yup.
Like, so this is. I think it's cool to have a dream. Nobody says, "Oh, well, this kid wants to play professional baseball. Let's tell him when he's 9 that that's just never going to happen." Where we tell these kids,
it's like not okay.
And the thing that the big difference in that comparison, because I know I've been making a lot of comparisons so far in this podcast, and I did a EFG Daily Commute talking about it too. There are some comparisons to like video games and sports, but one area where it breaks down is like, I don't know what makes a good baseball pitcher. I just don't, right? Like, I don't know baseball very well. But I know nothing about Fortnite, but I know what makes a good Fortnite player because Fortnite tells me what's a good Fortnite player because they win.
It's true.
And they have stats, and like you could just tell because they win consistently. So it's almost like if we pay attention, we will know whether our kids or the people around us are good or if they're great, and then we just support them. Because at the end of the day, if his mom truly didn't support him, she wouldn't have driven him from Pennsylvania to New York to stay in Queens for a week and watch him play a video game tournament that she probably hated. Like she wouldn't have done it if she didn't support him and know that he had a shot. Yep. And not only did he have a shot, but he dominated like LeBron.
He was unforking believable. I could not believe how quick this kid's clicks per second and clicks per minute were, like commands per minute were going. Like I'm a super old school gamer, right? When I think about competitive gaming, I think about StarCraft. I think about the original StarCraft and how big that was back in the day. And clearly it's not that anymore.
That's
But at the same
OG.
time, like that's my point of reference. Yeah, it's super, super OG. Like StarCraft is the original esport.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. Like the Fortnite World Cup was the most wholesome situation I have ever been a part of, and I'm really, really glad that I got to be a part of seeing history in the making.
I
Because
am jealous.
I honestly believe that this game has the power to transform what esports has been and potentially shape what esports is going to become.
I agree. I think people who are in that scene learned a lot, or if they haven't learned it yet,
They're going.
they got a couple of weeks. It's only Tuesday. I mean, we'll give them a little bit of a break. But speaking of esports, this is kind of a sub theme of this week's podcast. Let's talk about EVO. Let's move off of the Fortnite. Let's talk about EVO. So, for those that are longtime listeners of the podcast, you know I love me some EVO. Okay, EVO is Evolution 2019. It is the World Fighting Game Championships. They take place in Vegas. If you want to know how big this thing is, the Grand Finals event sells out the Mandalay Bay Arena for an entire day. I just want to point that out. Sells out the arena for an entire day. So a bunch of nerds can play fighting games. And I mean that because I am a nerd who would love to play a fighting game in the Mandalay Bay Arena. So, and this
I'd watch that.
You would watch me get just beat up real bad.
I would. I'd pay money.
So, I mean, maybe someday. So what I thought I would do, there's this whole weekend-long schedule. There's panels this year, which there weren't before, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
They're basically kind of turning it into like a fighting game convention, as it should, really. But I want to talk about the schedule for the finale, because it is more different than I have ever seen in my entire career watching fighting game tournaments. So, there are always 4 games featured during the finale. They're generally different, but usually there is one crown jewel at the top. So here's the schedule. And then Amanda, you can tell me, I'm sure you already know what's freaking me out. So at 9 a.m. Pacific, they start with Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle, which is a hella Japanese fighting game that features characters from the Blaze Blue universe, but also Ruby and some other animes. It's just wild and crazy anime fighting game.
Big anime energy.
Big anime energy is basically the subtitle. If they just put like another, like an EM dash, and then just said put big anime energy, no one would think that was fake. They would just think that was the name. At noon Pacific, Street Fighter V Arcade Edition. Let's put a pin in that, because that's weird. 3:30 p.m. Pacific time is Tekken 7, which, by the way, Tekken 7 is slaying. Tekken was like this long, relatively forgotten fighting series, and it's just come out of, I don't want to say it's come out of nowhere, but Tekken 7 is absolutely killing it. And then at 7 p.m. Pacific, which is rough for me because that means it's 10 p.m. Eastern, is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Okay.
All right, so I already know which one. I knew which one you were going to freak out about. Like, I knew.
Okay, well, there's 2 that I'm freaking out about. But let's talk about Street Fighter briefly.
Okay.
Street Fighter V, Street Fighter, has been the premier fight. It's been like the reason EVO exists for almost as long as it has happened. It has been like the biggest, some of the most epic moments have been the Street Fighter Grand Finals. Every year I watch EVO, and it's me on a Sunday night on my couch watching the EVO Grand Finals, the Street Fighter, and it's me just crazy hype watching these guys. Sometimes my poor wife will sit
crazy
near me.
hype?
Me
Never.
crazy hype? Never. Sometimes my wife will sit with me for like a few minutes and then be like, all right, I'm good. And then she'll go to bed.
That's
you know,
true, though.
and maybe she'll wait until one of the American guys gets eliminated or something. And then I'm always up until like 2 a.m. because I can't stop. Right? Like, I can't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop.
And not only are they not closing with Street Fighter, it's not even the early evening game. It's in the middle of the day, which
it sure is
so weird to me. And I'm just going to say it. This is all Capcom's fault. 100% Capcom's fault.
Okay, you're going to have to explain that to our audience, because I think I know what you're talking about, but you're going to have to explain that.
So, Street Fighter V is just... So, Street Fighter 4, which was PS3 Street Fighter, probably, it brought that franchise back from the brink. I mean, you remember, you were covering games when Street Fighter was a joke. And then Street Fighter 4 got announced. They showed that at E3, they showed that Street Fighter 4 trailer, and everybody was like, oh, I think this might be a thing. And I remember buying that game the day it came out. I brought it home, Street Fighter 4. I brought it home. My kids were little. My wife bought it for me. Brought it home. I married her for a reason. I married her for a reason.
She's a keeper, dude. She's a keeper.
15 years.
For literally ever. You need to keep her for literally ever.
I'm working on it.
I love it.
But and it was just so good, and the scene around that game was just so great, and the game,
it kept
getting bigger and better, and so many great tournaments, and so many great performances, and so many legends building names that I'm not going to say because it just would be gibberish to our to the audience, right? But Daigo wrote a book. Daigo wrote a book about winning off of some of his performances. And so the fact that it is so far down is depressing to me. Also,
it's not in primetime mode, which is really upsetting.
Which is weird. How about Marvel isn't anywhere on the list?
That's weird too.
Well, part of that, again, Capcom's fault, because Marvel versus Capcom Infinite was just not good.
It was a very bad game. I'm gonna come out with the saltiest take. I really didn't like that game at all. And to be clear, I'm not a huge Street Fighter fan as it is. That's not my game. Tekken is my game. Tekken Tag Tournament has stolen so many hours of my life from the time I was 14 until I was 18.
Yep.
So, Tekken is my thing, and then Mortal Kombat. Those are my things.
Yep.
So, I've never been a huge fan of Street Fighter, but I understand what it means, what Street Fighter means to the FGC. To the fighting game community. I understand that it being bumped that far in the schedule is a fall from grace almost.
Yeah, and it's all Capcom's fault. The reality, here's the first step. The first step is they put out Street Fighter V. They rushed it out the door, which, can we say quietly that so when we look back at
Are we
this
saying
generation,
the soft part loud or the loud part soft?
I don't know. Let me just say it, and then we can decide whether I'm quietly saying it or not. You know how there's now we're at the point in the life cycle of this generation where we're going to start talking about the big stories. And I know a lot of folks are talking about games with a service and games as a service and DLC being and microtransactions and loot boxes. Can I say that I think quietly the biggest thing that I'm going to take out of this is that this is when games really, really started getting put out just too damn early. Because it felt like for PS3, Xbox 360 generation, they were coming out too late. But at least too late meant we got an average game The Last Guardian. The Last Guardian just came out too late. And it was just a thing. But it was by no means bad. It was just...
No.
It was just there. But
yeah.
But you know what? It's just as there as I don't know, say Mass Effect Andromeda, which is also there, but not the day it came out. So it's Street Fighter V did the exact same thing. They put out a game with 9, I think it had 10 fighters. It didn't
Yes,
have
it
a
was 10
story.
records.
It didn't have a story
Nope.
mode. It didn't have
Nothing.
it had like you.
It was an
didn't-
incomplete game.
It
Let's
didn't
just
even
call a
have
spade a friggin' spade.
didn't even have an arcade mode. Forget a story mode. It didn't even have an arcade mode where you could just fight a bunch of dudes. It was an incomplete game, which put people off. I mean, mechanically it was fine, but it just looked like they took Street Fighter 4, took away some stuff, added one new mechanic with like the V trigger thing, and gave us like a new character, and then made it this big long DLC plan, which turned out to be worse than just putting out a new version of it every year. Like okay, you guys don't like us putting out a new Street Fighter 4 every year, which by the way, the new ones they put out were just $30, or they were like $50 anyway, and came with all the DLC characters. So just who cares? That's just the price of doing business. And the solution was a worse monetization model that more people could complain about. If it were free to play, I think it would have been less obnoxious. And even worse, so Street Fighter V, this big fall from grace, it's at freaking noon. And people are asking him, so does this mean... So clearly Street Fighter V is on the decline. Like...
I'm no
where's Street Fighter
expert
6?
by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah.
Where's Street Fighter 6? Like, where is it? And they have said, don't look for it, it's not here at EVO. So, I mean, now would be the time to be like, hey, guess what? We get it, 5 was a misstep. We're going to come back with 6 next year. And immediately all the hype is back.
I hope so.
So that's Street Fighter V. It's so depressing. Am I going to watch it? Of course I am. Of course I'm going to watch Street Fighter V because I love that cast of characters, the people that play it. But what's really weird is let's talk about Super Smash Brothers. Now you cover video game news and have done so for a decade or more. I can't remember.
About almost a decade. It'll be next year. It'll be a decade.
Okay. All right. Good. I thought it was 13 years for some reason. But at least I wasn't
okay.
that off. I was just trying to give you more credit.
That's okay, I'll take it.
You remember a couple of years ago, super big deal, Super Smash Bros. Wii U and Super Smash Bros. Melee were both going to be... No, this was before Super Smash Bros. Wii U was a thing.
Yes.
And Nintendo tried to tell them that they could not have Super Smash Bros. Melee in the tournament. After fans had fought and convinced them to put it on there, Nintendo was like, nah, you can't do it. And eventually Nintendo, relented and supported it.
It took a lot, though.
Oh, I mean, it did. It took outcry, and Twitter was just not a great place. I mean, it's not a great place in general, but, it was just an extra not great place for a couple of days, people complaining about that. And personally, for me, it made no sense. And now... This is 3 or 4 years later, maybe. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is headlining EVO? It's such a 180.
It's nuts.
It's nuts. And I can't freaking wait. Because I will absolutely go watch this stupid nonsense and just... I don't know what's going to happen. I'm wondering if
Get you back on your nonsense. That's what that is.
Oh, I'm back on it. I'm wondering if Hero is going to be legal. Because Hero came out today, by the way. Character number 3 in the DLC pack. I wonder if he's going to be legal. You think somebody's going to try and be cute and pull out Hero at the grand finals of EVO? I don't know. Maybe. So that's EVO. It's coming up. I'm going to talk a lot about it. I will be live tweeting it very likely from my personal account. That's at Dutesmania. Because I am very excited about EVO. I always get excited.
I can tell.
So folks so there are longtime fans that just know end of July is when I talk about EVO a lot, and then I stop. So thank you very much for indulging me today, folks. So let's move on to something else. So we got a news update. Joy-Con drift. So last week we talked about Joy-Con drift.
We did.
And it was a report.
Yes.
that someone had gotten an email sent to them. Patrick Klepek over at Waypoint had gotten an email sent to him that was an internal memo that said that Nintendo was going to be repairing Joy-Con. And it was a report. We didn't know that it was true yet. Not that I didn't believe him, but we didn't know.
But we investigated Game Daily.
Yeah, it's true. And if you want more details, there's a link in the show notes to Gamedaily.biz. It is actually a thing. So if your Joy-Cons are drifting, so here's what that means. Because I had a couple people ask me this after the last episode, because I didn't actually explain what drifting was. If your Switch, when it is on, is registering, like if you put it down and aren't holding either of the Joy-Cons, and it is registering input from the joysticks on either of the Joy-Cons, to the point where, maybe it moves through the menus all by themselves, or something like that. That means your Joy-Con is drifting. That means that it is potentially broken. Now, you can recalibrate it, and if you call Nintendo support, they're going to encourage you to recalibrate it while you're on the phone with them, because that does fix it in a lot of the cases. However, there is a mechanical defect with one of the parts where it is possible that it's just a permanent thing. If that's the case, Nintendo will repair that. They call them, go through the support channels, and there are numerous reports. I don't know if you guys actually had somebody do a Joy-Con repair.
We did. One of our Joy-Cons was drifting. Okay. So we ended up sending one of ours in.
So you haven't gotten it back yet?
Nope, but it'll be coming back soon.
So you call them, they've got a process and a procedure in place for their call center. It is at no cost to you. Correct. Before, it was like a $40 charge, which is a lot considering a set of Joy-Cons is $80. Now it is at no charge. Very likely because they did not want a class action lawsuit against a growing number of Nintendo Switch customers.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Lots of people,
especially not in Cali.
Yeah.
Cali is very consumer friendly.
Yeah. Nobody wants that kind of a class action lawsuit. So they're fixing them. I mean, realistically, as long as someone internally is trying to fix the components, maybe, do something to make it so it doesn't happen in the future. I mean, this is kind of a best case scenario, right? Like, they're fixing it.
Yep.
Hopefully someone is trying to fix it, but they might not be able to. The reality is this is the part without it's possible without the super redesign of the whole Joy-Cons themselves, they might not be able to fix it. That's tough to say. So hopefully somebody's working on it. At the very least, if your Joy-Con is drifting and recalibrating doesn't work, you can send it back. I know we will be sending back at least 2. And I owe Jake an apology because I've been blaming him the entire time.
It wasn't Jake. He didn't do it. Not this time.
That's an update on Joy-Con drift. If you want to get a full update on everything, head on over. There's a link to the report on Gamedaily.biz in the show notes. So we actually had a question submitted by one of our fans, and it actually came in today. Was the way the question came to me because of a couple of things that all kind of got reported this afternoon.
Was it financials?
Yes, it was. In fact, I have links to both of Mike's articles. On Games Daily.
Well, one of them's Mike's and the other one's Johnny's.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. To 2 respectable business writers on Gamedaily.biz. They are in the show notes. One, Nintendo announced their quarterly earnings. They are doing very well and selling a lot of Switches.
They are definitely selling a lot of Switches. I wouldn't say that Nintendo's doing particularly well. Their revenue's depressed, but the revenue is depressed because of foreign exchange rates. Same reason why Sony's revenue's depressed.
Yeah.
Foreign exchange rates.
Yeah. That always screws them up. They have a problem with that.
Japanese companies get seriously screwed with that. I thought Canadian companies got screwed with that. Japanese companies get super screwed with that.
Yes. So, specifically the area that they are doing well is that they're selling a lot of Switches and are poised to sell even more, as we talked about last week, because they're releasing a Switch Lite 2 months before they release a primarily handheld RPG. they're going to sell a lot of Switches.
Mainline Pokemon.
Yeah, maybe they aren't going to be, maybe their revenue will be depressed now, but they're sending out a lot of vectors to pull in more revenue for the future. And PS4, Sony announced that they've shipped 100 million PlayStation 4s. That's a lot of PlayStations. Now, it is worth mentioning, shipped does not mean that they have been sold.
Correct.
It means that they have been sent
That's right. So that means that they've been sent to retailers. 100 million units, 100 million PlayStation 4 units have been shipped to retailers. That doesn't mean 100 million units have been sold yet. So the last numbers that we had, I believe, was 92 million, 91 million.
Yep.
91.6 million. And that was at CES this year. So that was back in January. Or was that early? Yeah, late January, early February. So yeah, that was CES the last time that they did a report on how many. The last public report was 91.6 million units sold. They're kind of shy about their console unit sales, which is strange considering how well it's selling. Xbox has just kind of given up on talking about any of its unit sales because
talked about their unit sales in
not
years.
Since 2015, 20. I think.
And there's a good reason for them to do so because they're not telling the story, not telling how many consoles they've sold. The consoles sold isn't really telling the whole picture. I mean, the reality is they're still doing okay.
They are because Xbox is now a platform and a service. It's not necessarily just hardware.
Yeah.
So, what was our question for this week?
The question for the week is over their respective lives. Meaning, and by life of a console, meaning from the day that it's released to the day that they stop making them.
Yes.
Can the Nintendo Switch outsell the PlayStation 4?
Yes.
Absolutely. I don't disagree. I think absolutely it could. Now, here's what's interesting. If Sony sells all these 100 million, which, I mean, they're gonna. I mean, let's say that they haven't sold a single one since CES, and that they've got just 8 million sitting on retail shelves, which obviously is not the case, but let's just pretend. They've probably sold at least 10. I think that's a safe bet.
Probably.
At least 10. So 100 million console sales puts them very close to outselling both the Wii and... What's the other one? And the PlayStation 1.
The PlayStation 1, yes. I thought it was the PlayStation 2, but the PlayStation 2 didn't sell as well as the first PlayStation.
The PlayStation 2 sold 150 million units. I think you're confusing it with another one. So the PlayStation 1 was around 100 million. I'm going to bring up the Wikipedia
That's right, so
article.
it was PlayStation 2.
Yeah, it was PlayStation 2 is the crazy one. And
I owned like 3 different versions of the PlayStation 2.
Well, I mean...
Not going to lie to you.
Same. Between my brother and I, we cycled through a lot of them to the point where now the one PS2, like I still have my launch PS2.
I don't. My brother does.
I got mine that I bought. Mine still has the security strip on it because I bought mine from Blockbuster when I worked at it. And it was a rental unit. So mine still has the security strip on it.
Girl. Dang.
Yeah, listen, I don't play around. I have an OG
You're not messing
PS2.
around at
But my brother
all.
has the one that's like an inch thick. All right, so I'm looking at the best-selling game consoles. With this Wikipedia is like the source for this. So, the PlayStation 4 is showing 100 million shipped. It is safe to assume that before they stop making them, it will eclipse the Wii, which is its final reported numbers were 101.63 million. So I think it'll sell another 2 million over this 100 million. And then the original PlayStation was 102.5 million. Yeah. The real question is, so some folks are questioning, is the PS4 going to beat the PS2? Very likely no. Because the PS2 was weird because it was a DVD player.
Yes. The PS2 had a ton of staying power because it was also because it was a DVD player, because it was this multi-function thing that you had in your living room. Sometimes people would have more than one in their household because they
Yeah,
were really inexpensive too by the end of their life cycle. Like I've got my PlayStation Slim, my PlayStation 2 Slim, and I mean that thing still goes.
yeah,
If I want to play Final Fantasy VI, that's where I'm going to play it.
yeah. Also, like towards the end, they were like $80.
Yeah, they were
It was
super
insane.
inexpensive. Yeah,
I
it was pretty wild because it was just whereas this generation of PlayStation, they got, bigger and better and better and better, with the PlayStation 4 and then the PlayStation 4 Pro. It wasn't like that with the PlayStation 2. It wasn't about incremental hardware upgrades. It was about making it smaller and lighter and, easier to have in your house and easier to justify buying more than one. That's why they were able to, enjoy those sales numbers and those units shipped
yeah,
as much as they did. But
and
the Switch is really interesting.
yeah, because they can do that where they just make it
Yes, they
smaller
can.
and cheaper.
Yes.
And I think an indicator and something that I think is going to help prove both of our point, because I agree with you, by the way, 100% that the Switch. Not only do I think it can, I'm going to call a shot and say that it will, because you know what the other console. I'm going to put console in air quotes that sold more than the original PlayStation. Maybe they didn't beat out the PlayStation 2. One of them is the Nintendo DS. And the other one is the Game Boy / Game Boy Color. Two handheld Nintendo systems.
Handheld consoles.
Which is
Yeah,
what the Switch is.
Exactly. It's a hybrid console for sure because you plug it into your dock, but with the Switch Lite, that is a dedicated handheld console.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be able to, you can definitely make those one-to-one comparisons. I genuinely believe that with the advent of the Switch Lite, they're eventually going to have a better Switch that they're going to bring out on the market. And maybe this ends up segmenting their software market. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it ends up segmenting their community. Maybe it doesn't. But they have they have a much better chance at saturating the market, having a number of like a couple of different SKUs, much like the PlayStation 2 did, and they made it cheaper and more accessible to get at than its predecessor or its successor, for crying out loud. There was no such thing as a smaller PlayStation 3. I mean, kind of, I guess. The
first one was basically like
but
a George Foreman grill.
PlayStation 3, like slim, right? I don't know. I don't remember. It's been a while for me. So
yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, the PS3. I mean, it went through a remodel, but not. I mean, the first one was like a George Foreman grill.
Yeah,
and
it was.
The second one was like a baby George Foreman grill, but it was still.
But it was still essentially the same design. It was the same kind of structure. It was the same kind of shell.
Yeah.
But it was just a little bit smaller because it didn't have that backward compatibility.
Yeah, it didn't literally have a PS2 in it. Because
exactly.
the launch PS3s had a PS2 in them. And
yeah, well, like more or less, but yeah.
More or less. I mean, not literally, but like it had a lot of the guts not to take up space. So, so the Switch, I mean, it's absolute. I mean, also, I mean, you have to calculate in the fact that eventually they're gonna make a purple one, and like the whole What's Good Games community is gonna buy one, right?
It's true. I'm still gonna buy, not because I'm necessarily part of the What's Good Games community. They're great, though. I have nothing but mad respect for all three of them.
But you
I think
love
they're wonderful.
purple.
But I love purple.
Yeah, exactly. That's,
so
yeah, no,
Sure.
it's one of the, like that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, and we're still dealing with launch prices for the Switch. Like, could you imagine? Like, let's just fast forward 3 years from now. The new Xbox and the new PS5 are out.
PS5.
And then the Switch is just still like plugging along because it just doesn't care. It's underpowered, but it still doesn't care, and they're still making more. And at that point, I'll have my two OG Switches, and like, you know, the price on that's dropped to $200, and the price for the Switch Lite is like $125, which is not out of the question as we fast forward down through time. Could you imagine, like, right now a 2DS is $70. Now, admittedly, a Switch Lite probably will never get there, but I can absolutely imagine a world, you know, a bunch of years down the line where a Switch Lite's $99.99. and that's madness. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't. Like, we're gonna have so many of those in this house.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. Probably will too.
I mean, but you have the population to support it.
Okay. I mean, you're not lying.
Yeah.
We do.
I mean, you need it because of Animal Crossing alone.
Okay, can we let's put a pin in that. My youngest kids are playing Animal Crossing right now. My youngest
The
one
New
can't
Leaf?
read yet. Vivi's playing it, Gabe's playing it, and they're going nuts for it. They just love the heck out of Animal Crossing New Leaf.
My kids do the same. Maggie has finally started to actually figure out how to play the game, which is not something she can play it mostly for real. But until she could play it mostly for real, they just played hide and seek. They opened the gates and she would run around and they would try and find her. That game, when it comes to Switch, it's just it's gonna be madness, Amanda. It's gonna be madness.
The attach rate on that is going to be amazing.
Yeah. Follow up. Speaking of things selling more things. For our fan who sent in that question, thank you very much. If you have more questions, please send them over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/engagefamilygaming or engagefamilygaming.com/Facebook because we're fancy. The follow up. Right now, the highest selling Switch game is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
With the best attach rate, too.
With the best attach rate, do you think that it is possible that Animal Crossing could eclipse that?
I don't know. I don't think so. And here's my reasoning.
Yeah, okay. I agree with you, but I'm definitely interested in your reasoning.
So my reasoning for that is Mario Kart 8 is about as mainstream of a game as you can get. It's incredibly accessible.
True facts.
You can put it down in front of grandma and she can play with you and it will be really, really fun. You can get little kids to play it. You can get people that don't identify as quote unquote gamers to play it. But Animal Crossing, even as much as we want to say all right, well, this is going to be super amazing. And, the Animal Crossing fans are super excited. The fact of the matter is that our community of Animal Crossing fans is still quite small in comparison to mainstream gaming, which is very much so, a Fortnite world, an Apex Legends world, a PUBG world, and on Nintendo, a Mario Kart world. So that's my thinking on that. I think it's a nice thing to think about, but I don't think it's reasonable.
I think you're probably right. What gave me pause, that made me think that Mario Kart might be touchable, right, is that Smash is gaining on it. You know what I mean? Because Smash is selling very well, and I expect that it's going to get a significant bump, being that it is the headliner of EVO. Because the headliner of EVO always gets a pretty big bump, right? You see people playing well, you want to play it. It's like the Fortnite effect.
Yep.
But so I guess, but you're probably right. I think, just thinking about that, I think the only thing that can beat Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is Mario Kart 9.
Yep, you're right. That one I would agree with. Is we'll see when we do eventually see a new Mario Kart, which, by the way, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a live service game. I don't know if we will. So that's kind of up in the air right now in terms of will they actually build a brand new game like they built for Smash? I don't know. Because if Mario Kart 8 is a live service game, what's their incentive?
Well, I mean, but it doesn't have...
Think about it from a business perspective, though.
But
what's the incentive?
Well, I mean, selling 20 million more units. That's the incentive. That's all I got. You're right, though. I mean, I do get what you're saying, and you did your straight facts did take the wind out of my sails a little bit. But I mean, personally, I think if it were me, Mario Kart 9 is
Tomorrow.
a no-brainer because they sold what, like 17, 18 million units of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yep.
They're gonna, like, I think that the ceiling, that feels like the floor. Like, just everybody that owns Mario, like, if you own Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, why would you not buy Mario Kart 9? So that feels like the floor, and that feels like an awful lot of dollars. But you're right, they could also just, for not as much effort, release a $10 DLC pack, and everyone would buy it immediately. The issue is they just haven't done it yet. Like, I know it's a live service game, and it's got online support, and there's all sorts of stuff going on, but they haven't put new stuff in it in a while. So, I mean, but then again, they are making the mobile game, so that's probably where some of their efforts are. I don't know. We'll see. We will see. I mean, here's the good news. It's not like we're playing a bad game while we wait, because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is pretty good.
Yep.
Pretty good. And it's crazy to think about how many, like, it's so good that we are getting just a cavalcade of other platform or like kart racers. Like, Crash is out and a new Sonic Team Racing is out. They announced a Garfield racing game today.
I know, I saw that today.
Who asked
It's coming out the
for
same
that?
day as Death Stranding. I don't know. I feel like maybe Death Stranding's in trouble though. So.
Okay, for real, it's $30.
I
That's
know.
a plus.
It kind of looks cute though.
It does look cute, but like,
It looks cute. I don't know how robust it would be, but it's super, super cute.
I mean, is lasagna one of the weapons? Like, if it's
But
not,
I
I'm gonna
sure
be real
so.
mad. But I'm just really confused by this game. But yeah, like, it's so weird. Like, all of a sudden, all these car forces are coming. So anyway, so that's it. We did our thing. So that's the question of the week, and I added like 4 more.
Great.
So,
I always love questions.
yeah,
I'm so
so
here for it.
hopefully, or if you have more questions or want to hear us pontificate on other things, please sound off and let us know on Facebook. So we did it, Amanda.
We did.
So
You're very successful. I feel so good about this.
we did. So this has been episode 191 of Engage, a family gaming podcast. I do hope that you guys enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed recording. We will be back next week to talk about Amanda's voyage to Indiana and all the board games that you played. Your first time. Make sure to check out Lucas Oil Stadium, even though you don't know what they do there.
I don't.
But it's big and green, so you'll get it. It's like a
right.
hockey rink with no ice, and like
You had
3 times the
no
size.
ice.
Well, I
Okay.
mean, it's the middle of August. Everybody, I hope you have a great week. We will see you next time. And until then, don't forget to get your family game on. We'll see you next week, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Engage, a family gaming podcast. Thank you for listening. Tune in next